This is Pitch, and I'm Daniel. I'm a real scientist. I have degrees in physics and chemistry focused on polymers. I've done studies in nonverbal human communication. So when I talk about nonverbals of animals, I'm not coming from a standpoint of this is what I believe. No, I'm coming from a standpoint of this is what they're actually going on in their brain. I love neuroscience. And so this is why I can say this while other people can't. So, the thing that we're going to talk about today, and I've been wanting to do this for years now, and I'm going to show you evidence. I'm going to explain what's going on. Not just go, oh, well, you know, this is the answer. No, we're going to show you. You're going to understand by the end of the video. Do reptiles turn on a dime? Quick answer, no. No, they do not. Reptiles do not turn on a dime. But that's not simple. That's not the whole story. Mainly when I hear this is when somebody, like, they're talking about keeping two beardies together. And they're like, oh, well, you know, you can't keep two beardies together. They just turn on a dime. No. That's not how that works at all. You shouldn't keep two beardies together unless you know what the hell you're doing. There's a lot more to it than just that. But it's just, it's not true. You're literally using it as a replacement for random. And random in the real world doesn't exist. Random is unexplainable because there is no cause or reasoning. So therefore, it is random. And you're literally telling new keepers that there's no way to understand their animals. All that's bull. They're thrown out the window. You're just literally not taking the time to understand more. And that's fine. Just stop saying it. Because people are going to use it in ways that are not good for our hobby. So to finish it out, PETA might use this term as they're wild animals that just turn on a dime, when this is totally not the case. Now, for people that might be going, oh, well, you know, I think this is offensive. You seem to, you know, actually, yes, I am targeting you. If you feel like I'm insulting you, then yes, I am insulting you. Because you've probably used this term, and you've used it the exact way that I've said you don't need to use it. Because it doesn't actually exist. And I'm going to teach you the stuff. And we're going to get down to this so you can better understand your animals. We should all be trying to do better. Not just, oh, well, you know, this is how it is. She's trying to get down maybe to poop or just sleep. See? I understand her. I get it. So let's get to it. I'm going to show you a clip and then we're going to talk about it. See, the start time is 11:28:07. We have Lucky here, my emerald green tree skink, climbing. He's finding this fun. He's running around his tank. He's actually doing some learning. Okay, so now we have 11:29:27 is the first time he stops. And now he's actually mapping out his next moves. He's going, okay. So now we see that 11:27, so not long for him to map out his next move. And he's actually taking a very long time on this because he wants to climb this. He's been doing this for a little bit now. This camera's on when I'm at work. We play a game called Find Lucky. And we can just see him running all over this majestic palm. His brain uses probably more right now, and as he learns, his brain, that same amount of brain power gets shrank. See, 11:32. So we're looking at a couple minutes, but he only stops. See, 8. He only stops for less than a minute, and then he's back at it. But yeah, he seems to go longer, but it's not linear. So he's actually planning things. And as the more he plans, the more likely it is that he actually is using less brain power. And this is play. He's playing around. But he's planning this. So if your animal isn't fearing for its life and or food motivated, but here's the thing, the longer they go, the less brain power they use, so the faster they can do something. That's actually how the brain works. It's quite fascinating. So as we go through this, we need to understand that there is a delay. And if you don't see that delay, it's because they were already thinking about whatever they were doing before you saw them. Unless they're truly fearing for their lives, and then they're reactionary. And in the wild, they're very reactionary. So I've already showed this next clip in my non-verbal bearded dragon video, but I sped it up 5 times the normal speed just to get through it. But we can see that Calm Fancy doesn't just all of a sudden beard up and then start head bobbing. It takes him a minute. And then I throw a curtain over it. And then my actual memory goes out, and so I have to delete everything, and he still doesn't change his black beard after taking away the stimulation. It's one of those things that still is happening in his brain. So I keep going back to their brains. Well, what this has showed us is it's not just one species, it's all the species as a whole. This is showing us that, okay, when you do math, your brain, most people's brain actually goes this part of the brain. So it actually jumps hemispheres, and it takes a huge portion of this. But when the human calculator does this, it's this part of his brain. It's the same part that we use to blink. So normally these animals are very reactionary out in the wild. And so that's probably a super small part of their brain. And so they've got all this leftover. So now we've keeping them in captivity where they're not using all of that. So we're rewriting their brains. So this means that they're not just going to automatically change. They have to take time. They have to develop this. They have to learn this process. And so imagine a child learning to walk. They don't just all of a sudden come out the womb and they're walking. No, it takes time. And the further they do it, the more it becomes a smaller part of their brain. And so the more these guys do this, the more they're actually playing to learn, or they are even a natural behavior such as blackbearding and head bobbing to show dominance doesn't just happen. It takes its time. They go through the motion, their brains are reacting and absorbing and setting up. And so it's truly interesting part of it. And that right there shows you none of their behavior is truly random. So therefore they do not turn on a dime ever. It is a flaw in our logic that we want to believe that we can't understand something. It's just random. No. It just means that you can't understand it. And that is perfectly fine. Nobody should be making fun of you for that. But let's see something like an anole. Now, an anole, they seem to change colors like that. Super interesting. But their brains are so much smaller than a bearded dragon's brain. But yet they still have pretty good control over that. But yet, anything around that area that goes off. But we don't know what part of their brain that area is in. I'm sure somebody might actually. There might actually be, but at this point in time, I do not know. And so therefore, whatever's around that goes off. And we're not even sure how far apart that pieces need to be. And then it'll all of a sudden change that color. So they could have a fart, literally, and change color just because they had the fart. It's not even, as funny as that is, it's possible. Because we don't know what's around that. And anything around that goes off could potentially change their colors because their brains are so small. And our neurons don't just travel, leap. They actually have to take a path. And so it's fascinating. When our eyes collect data, it actually drops it into spots along the brain. But our cerebral cortexes are so strong, it takes in all of that. So this is an incredibly interesting thing. And what's sad is how many people probably believe these animals want to do nothing all day. No, they actually want to be out. They actually want to use that brain. This boredom. I mean, it happens in us all the time. It's amazing how much boredom rules our lives. So let's start thinking of these animals as, okay, they're actually putting thoughts and plans into motion. Now, I've heard things like some of them only remember up to 6 months. That's because, if that's true, that's only because they're not doing it regularly. If it's done regularly, it should last way longer than 6 months. Alligators and stuff remember commands for food and stuff years and decades later. So this isn't something that's just, well, they just automatically forget. It's just, have you done enough to help them to remember? Have you helped develop their mental stimuli to consist of this consistency so that it becomes something long-term in their brain? That their brains are written like this. This is why training is so important. And we need to always think about these animals as, hey, this animal thought about this. So he's probably been thinking about this longer than I've been standing in front of his cage. Okay, let's do that. So when they show trust, they've actually put some thought into it. Not Spike, but Hydra. I love Spike. I still got him on the brains, and it's been a year since he's passed. So Hydra, when I take him out to the lake and he gets a little overwhelmed or gets a little scared, starts climbing on me. So it's almost instantaneous. So what that tells me is that he was thinking about it as we were coming into the freaking lake. And I know Pitch thinks about this stuff as she comes into the lake. It's insane that Pitch is like, hey, look, I can look out this window. Oh. But she doesn't get overwhelmed like they do. And to be real honest with you, I've probably shrank the understanding down to where it's possibly wrong, just so we can understand it, because there's so much more to it. And there's so much that we might not even understand at this point. But we're going to start learning more and more about that on this channel. My next one that I have coming up that I want to make, so who knows how long this is going to take, is do reptiles think in 3D. Thank you. Help the channel, like, subscribe, and share. I'll see you all next time.